Good morning, everybody, and good evening to some. John Sfiocca here for GAI Insights with a Gen AI news briefing, rating for you the news in generative AI from essential to important or optional. Essential, have to read it right away. Important, make time for it later. Optional, make time for it if you feel like it. All right. We got a lot going on today. We have 7 articles going everything from how certain Singaporean companies are starting to make money through the Slack attack, where Slack is not clear about how they're using our information to train their models. Microsoft may have a multi-billion-dollar fine because it's not disclosing as its risks under EU law. And last but not least, OpenAI, surprise, surprise, is pushing commercial viability over safety. Shocking. Anyway, with that, Akash, we can start off with the first about optimization of super app Grab.
Sure. Thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today is from the super app Grab. And this article talks about how Grab has built an in-house LLM-powered marketing tool, and the content generation time has reduced from 99 hours to just 90 minutes.
All right. Amanda, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, so I guess my take is Ankash pretty much summed it up in what he literally just said. So for me, I think it's optional. It talks about them making a profit, things like that, talking about reduction in workforce, which again is literally the second line of the article. So for me, again, there's nothing that jumps out. It's a use case, things like that. So like I'm totally optional on this one.
Optional labor productivity story. What do you think, folks? Optional here. Does this go up to important as a case study of labor reduction?
Yeah, well, we're going to have a second article about labor reduction, which makes me want to pair them together and call them important, because it's an indication that we're starting to potentially see what people have been concerned about, right? That AI is starting to reduce headcount and people are losing their jobs. And this one is in, it didn't actually say, did it say which roles they were cutting?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe
No,
so.
I don't think so.
The other one will be in software development. And you've got to assume that it may be in that as well here, given this is a digital native company.
Yes.
So I would mark it important. It's short. It's the news that's important. Agree with Amanda that the actual information in the article is a little light, but I think the news is important.
Yeah, I'd argue important as well, particularly for the private equity and family-owned businesses. I mean, this is yet another great example of real operating leverage happening.
All righty. Well, it is 18% of the headcount and so forth, and driving the profitability. And those numbers, content creation, for marketing, from 99 hours to 90 minutes. I mean, that's impressive. All right, we're going to give it an important for now.
John, one more thing before we leave. I mean, I think it's obviously important when you think about jobs, but for U.S. companies competing against Chinese companies are doing this. So we've got to help our AI leaders know where the efficiency optimization opportunities are.
Yes. Yeah, amazing. I mean, yes, here we are in Singapore. We're cutting a lot. All right, let's head to the next one. Luda. I'm sorry, Ankash first and then to Luda.
So the next one is from law firms. So law firms have started Gen AI rollouts, but they are using safeguards to make sure that there are no hallucinations or no problems for the lawyers.
All right. My oldest boy's a lawyer, but he's a prosecutor here in Chicago, which means he's got plenty of primary demand. What do you think here, Luda? Law firms adopting.
Yeah, this is another use case that is important for the legal industry. But again, I would put it optional, but a good use case. They're trying to be very careful in how they use it, internal use first, and then roll it out to customers in the like contract optimization or contract support type of applications, but something to be expected. And we always said that this is one of the first fields that will be impacted by AI, by generative AI, and it is. So it's happening. And I feel that we might want to consider something like a use case category that that is something for people to keep in their back pocket, upper or lower, doesn't matter. But optional for me.
Optional. All right, we have an optional.
I'd just like to note that the $20,000 Australian dollars as a bounty is a really interesting. I haven't seen a lot of the firms do that, and boy,
Yeah,
Australia.
I'll jump in. I know Gilbert and Tobin. I actually they were hiring last year for a head of AI role. They were very early to this, and they've always been very proactive and very aggressive about staying on top of this and making it part of their infrastructure. And that cut headlines when it came out last year. Definitely, they're innovating, they're pushing the boundaries, and they're really leaning into, going about this the right way and making sure that they're hiring at the top, that they have someone that's having ownership over this, that they're implementing at all different levels. They're known, at least in Australia, for certainly being forward facing on this stuff.
Adam, do you know Karen Sander by chance? Would love to get her on a learning lab.
I could reach out to her. Yeah, certainly.
That'd be great, Adam. If you could, we'd love to invite her. I mean, if she's in the States, we'd invite her to the conference. But
so, Adam, would you call this important, given it's a nice example of a company kind of doing it right in terms of implementing?
The article itself doesn't go into that much detail. It just would draw your attention to the fact that Gilbert and Tobin is someone that's doing AI. I considered this optional news as well.
Yeah, I thought it was optional as well, but I thought it was interesting too how they're remarketing the product from Harvey back into their client base. And I think another interesting piece here, just taking a quick look at Gilbert and Tobin, I think Danny Gilbert, the founder, is still around, and sometimes these founders have more ability to really drive change if they're on it. Something that for the bureaucratic post-founder law firms, watch out. We get some entrepreneurs here. All right, let's go ahead and give this an optional. Next, Akash.
Okay. So next one is from Slack. So Slack has been under attack from various people on Twitter over their sneaky AI training policy.
All right. On this, Paul, what do you think?
I'll stir up the debate a little bit. I actually will rate this as essential under the my data is not your source of revenue. So we've seen Reddit now turn around and close, I think it's $60 million deals monetizing their data. We've seen Google monetize the hell out of consumer data. We've seen Fortune 500 companies that I don't want to know that name, but they've got one person there who's VP of strategic alliances with the platforms, and their sole purpose is to figure out how to monetize their data. We have LLMs running around and looking for private sources of data because their competitors are all using everything on the internet, and that's becoming a commodity. So I think the sneakiness of yes, use all my employee data at Salesforce, Slack, use all my data, and then turn around, Adam, and charge me another $10 per user for a better model. I think our leaders should be aware this is happening. I mean, John, we were at the MIT, and the leader we support at Blue Cross Blue Shield has 7,000 enterprise applications.
Yeah. And I mean, Slack claims that they are in almost 80% of the Fortune 100, and certainly every startup I've ever talked to uses Slack. So they're on both ends of it. So there's huge penetration of this organization. What do others think? Essential? Paul's making the case for essential here, trying to wake us up on a Monday morning.
Here's what was my thought about it. I was actually on the other end of the spectrum as optional, only because the article itself is terrible. It's
awful.
It's really confusing, and I don't think it's going to provide a lot of value for the reader. So if we could find a different article with better coverage of the topic, I might feel differently. But this article, I didn't even know what to make of it. Like, what exactly is Slack doing or not doing? And I know the whole point is that everybody is confused about what Slack is doing, but it's the reporter's job to kind of break it down for us and help us understand. And I think they failed miserably at that. So I have a hard time recommending this particular article to our audience.
Yeah, I'm with David on the quality of the article, but I'm with Paul about the essential nature of the issue. It's not only Slack, right? There are many applications out there that are taking the data and using it for training, and it's buried in some esoteric privacy use somewhere that no one looks at. So that comes to up for us, for people to start reviewing. So this is happening, and it's an important issue to flag for people. Maybe we put it as important and discuss it that way in the rationale.
And maybe I'll try to find a different article on this when I send out the newsletter to see if there's one I can throw in there and say, hey, we think this is an essential topic, but read this one instead, actually.
Yeah, I found an Engadget article, which is better from a quick look here.
I think the other one is check on Walter Haydock, who runs Stack Aware. He spoke at our conference last year on security, and he's had 3 or 4 posts about this particular topic on LinkedIn, and he's pretty fired up as well.
All right.
I'll add it. I think it's borderline essential for me in that I think the AI leader needs to be thinking about all these different platforms they're connecting to. And the fact that this is really, it's clearly establishing a precedent that they can opt you in by default, right? Yeah. It's one thing to say, hey, we're going to use your data, but we need your permission. It's another to say, we're going to use it and you're going to have to figure out that we're using it and go tell us that you didn't want us to. But at the same time, that's pretty much how a lot of these platforms work is you're trading your data for use of the platform, right? Yeah. And we've been doing that for a decade. So that's sort of why I fell in the middle as important news. But I agree with you on the writing, David.
Yeah, but you Adam, you get to pay for Slack. I'm not getting it for free. I mean, come on. Same with Salesforce. I mean, I'm with you. Google, okay. I don't pay. Well, I pay them some, but I mean, anyway. All right. Essential. We're going essential. Essential with a better article. All right. Sounds good. Woohoo! Hey, early in the week, we have essential news. Slack the slime balls. Gonna fix it. All right.
Yeah, we use them.
Of course we use them. Everybody else we use them.
I know.
Well, we can complain while we're using them, can't we?
That's right. That's right. We bought the right to complain by paying for the usage.
All right. Akash.
So the next one is a research paper which talks about online RLHF, so reinforcement learning from human feedback. So they provide some detail into how they improved upon the offline RLHF and what kind of techniques they have used.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think of this? RLHF, automated.
So RLHF, first of all, so that's reinforcement learning from human feedback. So that's basically that iterative process with the robots and the humans so that we can help them refine and get further refined and trained over time. And this is really about how can we do that more efficiently? How can we do that better at scale? It's something that's important for the open source community where you have these disparate resources all over the world trying to figure out how can we work together to refine and train a model. So I think this is useful research and will continue to push the envelope on the open source movement being able to compete against the big boys. But generally speaking, this is not really something that's of much importance to our target audience, and I would consider it optional news.
Adam, sorry, I was going to ask. I had to have ChatGPT interpret this one a little bit for me. It was pretty technical, but unless ChatGPT is wrong, which it is every now and then, I was actually finding this pretty interesting and was maybe going to mark it as important because it provides. Well, first of all, it feels like what I'm understanding from this is they're using computer basically in place of the human. So it would be, they're no longer really human feedback. This is what I was understanding, that they're actually like automating the feedback and using compute to provide the feedback, and therefore it moves a lot faster for training, and you don't need all of those humans that you're exploiting in underdeveloped countries to give the feedback, as a lot of the providers are using. So if I'm understanding this correctly, again, I actually would mark this as important, because it gives another way for even a company to train, to fine tune a model in an automated fashion. And to me, it seemed like it opened up innovation for a company, whereas they would never be able to do that before, because they potentially don't have access to those annotators on the other side of the world.
All right, so we have one important, one optional in terms of the relative importance of machines taking over for human models, improving models. I would put it as optional. I mean, I think we have lots of other examples, like Anthropic uses models to improve its models and so forth. You know, a lot of the core stuff. I mean, this particular piece of research, I can't speak to, how much their incremental value, add here, but, all the way back to AlphaGo, it was, model teaching the model to become better. So I don't know where other people are.
Yeah, David makes a good point, and it is in the public domain, John. So this is useful for people who are using open source, and like what David says, other models, but can use this automated version to test them or to fine tune them.
But Luda, do we know how accurate this is? I mean, it's one thing. It feels like meeting summary to me. Hey, we have a widget that does meeting summary, but who knows if it's accurate? And that's a whole purpose.
The results are on page 16 of the PDF. And so the reason I didn't go important, I went optional, is the results are good, but they're not. So Ankash, if you can scroll to page 16 and show us, the results are impressive, because they're beating most models except for the top ones. So that's why I'm still optional, but with noting David's point about the availability of this technique for other purposes. See, at the bottom, the underlined are the ones that are much higher than what they show in the middle in bold.
Yeah, I mean, Michael also notes, this is pre-publication, so it's not in production yet. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and land on optional, but we'll keep an eye on the space. Super important, both from a human rights perspective and from a value and cost perspective. All right, and open source chasing the big guys. Next.
Next one comes from Microsoft. So Microsoft risked billions in fines as the European Union has started investigating its GenAI disclosures.
Again, shocking. Microsoft overstepping things. Oh my goodness. Who knew? All right. What do you think, Amanda?
Yeah, so I'm torn on this to pretty much your comments, Dr. John, on I don't know, possibly optional. The only reason why I'd be swayed maybe a little bit into the important camp is just because they're being blasted, right, by the EU. It's a threat. Do I believe they're going to get fined billions? I don't know. But then it went on to talk about, I think in the article, that would be something like 1% for them or so. Whatever it was, it's not even going to be for them this enormous hit or anything. So I guess it's something to be aware of, that, the government can start going after you, for example, EU, whatever, right? But for me, this is still a little bit optional.
I voted triple nothing burger. A harsh scolding. That's hilarious to me.
Well,
we're going to get your attention with a harsh scolding, John.
Well, it's not even a harsh scolding. It may be a harsh scolding.
Oh, that's right.
If they don't just provide some documents that outline potential harm a week from now. This is like, maybe a week from now, they might get something done. Yeah, I'm with you on this one.
I think it will be important if they do get fined, because it at least indicates, you need to take the EU's rules seriously if you're operating over there, because they are watching and they will come after you. They're really on Microsoft, right? They're coming at them at a couple different angles right now. But this is just stupid by Microsoft. Like, give them the damn paperwork. Like, you're a huge multi-billion-dollar company. You couldn't turn the paperwork in on time. I mean, come on, guys.
Well, they have another week to present them with the documents.
No, they missed the deadline. They missed the deadline, and now EU is saying,
Well,
okay, you missed the
it's
deadline.
not a deadline if they're not going to get a penalty for it yet.
Well, yeah,
This is
now they're
the
like,
real deadline. Yeah.
if you miss the second deadline, then we're actually going to fine you. So,
Or we might discuss it about, like, maybe, about the fine and the paperwork in exchange. So I don't know. I'm with Paul.
that's definitely
Alrighty, actually it is.
There, John, before we leave, though, Luda, I grew up in Ohio, went to Catholic grade school and high school, and the nuns there, they didn't threaten you with a harsh scolding. They just jump right to the penalties. So,
Yeah.
got everyone's attention.
Awesome. Yes, no warning. Just go. All right. Ankash, Replit.
Yep. The next one comes from Replit. So Replit has cut its staff by 30 people, and the total staff is around 180. And it says that they are using AI in their own software development. So kind of interesting. And company who develops software is using their own copilot to reduce its own workforce.
All right, David, what do you think? Labor productivity here?
Yeah, I mean, this is the article I mentioned earlier, and so I mark it as important, again, as I stated, because I feel like it's the early indicators of what's coming here potentially in the software space. This is 30 out of 180 employees, so that's about 16%. We saw the other company laid off about 18% of their staff. So I think it's important. I think, unfortunately, it's important for companies with a large software development element, which is most companies at this point, to take a look, right? I hate to even say this, but to take a look and see, if this makes sense for them. And the note to software developers is, make sure you're using AI and you're the person orchestrating all of this, not the person that's getting cut because it's taking your job.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think here?
Well, I think the bigger picture about AI taking jobs or cuts due to productivity is worthwhile to pay attention to and potentially be concerned about. This company, though, is literally an AI-powered software and development platform. So in some ways, they would probably not be doing their job if they weren't coming out with news like this. So this person, I consider them an outlier. I wouldn't be pointing at them as the example of what's going to happen in industry. I mean, that's literally what their platform is all about. is being an AI-powered software development platform.
So Adam, you're suggesting possibly this is even a marketing ploy. Let's overhire a little bit and then say that we use our software and have these huge productivity gains.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but I definitely think it looks good.
It's not a marketing ploy.
I have something to say. The operative word in the CEO's discussion was a restructuring of the workforce. And I very much believe that they will hire, if not all, but at least a half of these people back. Remember, we had a discussion that it is shifting. You shouldn't be hiring the entry-level folks because that can be replaced by AI. But AI is not quite yet capable to do the design of the software. And that is the critical skills that you need more of, especially if you're working with clients on defining and designing their AI software for them, right? You need designers. And if these 30 are not designers, yeah, out they go to be replaced by the more advanced software developers that can design and test the whatever produced by AI. So I think that is an important point, and I think should be stressed that many industries will be restructuring their labor forces.
Yes, thank you for the backup, Luda.
But we didn't use that word, and I think it is important.
Well, I was saying the same thing. AI,
Okay.
you need to be able to be the one that's using AI, not the person that's getting replaced by it, which was implying the entry-level folks.
All right. Yeah, no, very interesting. So we're going on important here, we think? All right, let's land on important.
Who's got the chalk? John, you got the chalk today?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. It's important, baby.
So are we saying there's 2 important meetings on a Monday? This is maybe a first.
And an
Oh,
essential. Don't forget
And an
that.
essential,
You took it up to essential, baby. We're
It's like
we're
a cup of coffee.
this week fast. All right, last one coming up. OpenAI. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. OpenAI is not concerned about society at large. And we have Larry Summers overseeing the whole thing. How encouraging from the man who created the weapons of mass destruction in financial services. Okay. Yes. Let's see. Who did I put on this one? We have Adam. What do you think?
Ankash, you wanna lead us in?
Oh, I'm sorry. Of course, Akash.
That's all right. That's all right.
Sure, Adam. OpenAI's lead on the super alignment team, Jan Leak. So he wrote a Twitter thread this weekend about why he left OpenAI and how the focus of the company is shifting from safe AI to more commercial AI. So this talks about that entire piece and where OpenAI is going with this.
All right, I'll jump in. Look, I think it's an important issue. I also think we literally just discussed this on Friday with the news of Ilya leaving, and that article touches on the fact that Jan was leaving as well. So I'm not sure if this article and what's been revealed with his comments in there adds enough to what we've already said to make it important news, or whether I would consider this optional because we've already flagged it as important on Friday. So I was a bit on the fence, but I do agree. I was the one on Friday who led off and said that it was optional, and you all convinced me about the importance of this, not just specifically around super alignment and they're focusing on profit, but in terms of organizations who are the one-trick pony and are wedded to OpenAI for their business and their future plans to really think about organizationally what's going on behind those walls. So the news is important. I'm not sure if this specific piece versus what we already covered Friday warrants an important rating as well.
Gotcha. All right. So important area already covered makes this optional. What do folks think? We're coming toward the end of the hour here. We haven't got a lot of time. Yeah.
I want to highlight the trend. So we saw Salesforce/Slack used by employees exhaust for their revenue. We've seen Microsoft, poke the regulators that might get a scolding. And now we've got OpenAI saying, we don't care about safety. It's profit at all costs here. So, I think certainly there's a theme here. I agree with Adam. We did cover this here. But boy, AI leaders need to know that there's T's and C's in their contracts that are absolutely not to their advantage.
Well, I think also that if you look at the big providers, you ask yourself the following question: what countries are more powerful than Google, Microsoft, and Apple, and so forth? And I'd say to you, there's only maybe Germany, maybe Japan, China, France. Is France more powerful than Microsoft? I don't think so. Anyway, I think these things are nation states you're dealing with as a buyer. And my opinion. Anyway, that's what John Sherman was worried about in the Sherman Antitrust Act. Anyway, other thoughts?
Yeah, I missed the show on Friday. Obviously, I was out of office, so I wasn't sure what extent you guys went into this. The topic is important. There's actually an article that I touched on. Well, I focused my comic on this week, as you saw, and one of the articles I used as a source was one from Vox, which goes into a lot more detail on what's going on over at OpenAI. They were able to get a source from somebody that used to work there and kind of gave a bunch of information. They talk about the 5 others that left the company that were in super alignment. We know that the whole team was kind of disbanded. It goes into some more detail. So I think depending on how much you covered it on Friday, I'd mark this important, and maybe I'll throw in that other article that gives a little more detail than this one.
Adam, don't we record these things?
Hey, I was moving this weekend.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
There's-
Fair enough,
David,
David.
there's also a ratings page that provides the rationale on our website if you need to review these.
It's a sentence, folks. It doesn't give me a sense on how much you went into it.
All right. All right. I'm going to give this bad boy an optional. It's interesting. Mauricio Ortiz asks us in the comments, is he going to go open with his own AI to maintain his principle, or will he be hired by Microsoft for another quote unquote not-for-profit purpose? Very interesting questions. The guy who founded DeepMind with Suleiman just went over to Microsoft, left Inflection, and the reason he wanted to go there, talking to some folks from Inflection, was that he is just so passionate about creating artificial general intelligence. He raised $1.5 billion over to Inflection, then hopped over to Microsoft because he thinks that it's going to have more ability to get access to GPUs and model investment. So really interesting question, Mauricio. Where does ethics hit aspiration in this whole field? All right, here we are. Ankash, thank you for the summary here. We're starting out the week strong. Slack under attack for its sleazy activities around data. Then we've got Gen AI and cloud optimization as important, along with Replit as case examples of something that we have, labor productivity becoming real, especially in the software realm. And then a series of optionals, some decent case studies and so forth. The law firms with a similar notion of labor productivity and restructuring of organizations. So with that, we start off the week strong. Paul, what do we have for the Learning Lab tonight?
Thanks, John. Tonight's Learning Lab at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern is the CEO of Altus. Altus is a no-code, low-code promising vendor, and they are going to talk about some of the use cases in financial services where they're really driving value using a RAG model.
All right, great. Anything else important to share with our audience, ladies and gents? All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early or late, depending upon where you are in the world, for tomorrow's Gen AI News Briefing. Bye-bye.